Good morning and welcome to the Committee of the Whole for the municipality of Indianapolis County. I would like to say welcome to our visitors in the back, and make sure you have your cell phones off. We are conducting the meeting and you are being recorded. So let's get started this morning with roll call. District 1, she will be absent for the day. District 2.
District 2, Jesse Hare.
District 3, Dustin Winslow. District 4, Charles Cranton.
District 5, Lynn Longmire.
District 6, John Welch.
District 7, Ted Agenbar.
District 8, Niall Harding.
District 9, Gidget Oxner.
District 10, Brian Fuzzy Connell.
District 11, Diane LeBlanc. Good morning, everybody. We'll get started with the disclosure of interest, if there are any. Seeing none, we'll continue. We have the approval of the order of the day. Any additions, no deletions? We will move on. The approval of the minutes of February 11th, 2025, regular council committee of the whole. Are there any corrections that are to be made? Seeing none, we will approve as is. Next on our agenda is approval of terms of reference on page 7. I need a mover. Councillor Cranston, would you please read it?
I move that Municipal Council approve the terms of reference for the Marketing Levy Ad Hoc Committee.
Thank you. And the seconder, I believe, was Mr. Campbell. Now we will have a discussion. Is there any discussion or questions on this particular item? On the motion itself?
I do. I'm trying to find, sorry.
Okay.
I'll put my hand up just so I'm just trying to find what it was. So I guess, well, I guess it's just a general comment. So the makeup of the committee, you know, I often go back and think what makes up our committees and how do we set criteria and how do we make it inclusive? So I remember reading it, you know, it's to be made up of so many of the council and then so many members.
Page 10.
Page 10, sorry.
Membership.
Yep, wrote it down. I wrote it down at the bottom.
3 elected representatives from the council and 3 from operators that are registered under the marketing levy.
And to me, I think that, I don't know if there's another broader kind of guideline that would suggest, you know, all persons of any group are eligible to be considered for a committee. So, you know, be it, I guess I'll use the word inclusive, right? Which would gather up a tremendous amount of either persons of disability, persons of a special interest group. I just don't know how we make sure that we're inclusive. I'll leave it there.
I don't think there's anything that stops anybody at all, because it's 3 from whoever owns, operates, how's it phrased? 3 representatives from operators registered under the marketing levy, so it's in that category. I don't think it causes anything in particular. Do anybody wants to take that on? I think it's clear. Does that answer your?
Well, I don't find it clear. I think moving in the future, we should consider being more clear. I'll just leave it there. Thanks.
Would you be more clear by adding what?
Perhaps I can just, you know, say that I would like to see the language so that it doesn't, we don't want to assume that we include, I want to be inclusive. I guess, I should say.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Welch.
The thoughts around the operator, is that someone you would consider like someone who maybe has 20 years of experience operating but no longer operates, but can bring a lot of wisdom to the table? That sort of thought, or?
I shouldn't speak.
I'm just,
Okay.
just curious as to the definition around that, the operator
Okay.
or other people.
Thank you, Councillor. You wish to add there, Councillor Nolan?
I will, and I guess, the three representatives from the operators registered under the marketing levy, I mean, I know the idea behind this is it's a marketing levy ad hoc committee, so it makes sense. I'm just suggesting that in the future, we need a statement on inclusivity around persons wishing to apply for membership on a committee. I don't know if there's that language out there. I'll just leave it there. I'm fine.
All right, thank you. But they have to operate a place to be able on the committee. That's the specific word that I pick out.
Yeah, that's good.
Councillor Harding?
Yeah, thank you. I'd just like to say that I think that this is a good step forward. I think we've been hearing from the community members that there needs to be more consultation and that people want to have a say in what happens with the funds that are collected through the levy. I think that moving forward with a committee is the best way to do this because it brings together members of council and members of the short-term rental owner community to talk and work together on projects or areas of interest or concern for funding where the money can go to help with tourism initiatives or infrastructure upgrades possibly, and also to review the bylaw itself and to make sure that it is covering and being used appropriately. I think I understand what is being said about the admission requirements for the committee, but I think that it is important that the people that are from the community on the committee are short-term rental owners. I had a thought for a moment that was, well, maybe you could include one member from the general public, but wouldn't make sense because they're not contributing to the levy. They're not paying the levy, a member of the general public. So
They may in the future.
I think that they may in the future, that is true, but I think it's important if you're going to be a part of those discussions that you are a part of that specific community. So I just wanted to say I support this wholeheartedly and I think this is an excellent step forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harding. Councillor Cranton?
I agree with Councillor Harding on I think it's a great step forward. I specifically focused on the scope on page 9 of our report. The three things ABC, recommending disbursement of the funds, review and provide recommendations on bylaw matters, and specifically Part C, consider input from industry interest holders, tourism organizations, and other relevant entities to maximize the effectiveness of the marketing initiatives. So there's where I think the committee compensation with the three is one thing, but this is the piece that kind of gives the authority to the committee to consider the interest holders. So I think we have our bases covered by having that in there. And who knows, perhaps it's an ad hoc committee for this year, so it could, a year from now, morph into an advisory committee focusing on part 1 about get past the bylaw part and get moving into the actual marketing aspect of it. So I think it's a great first step forward. And like I said, it covers, it includes all the stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cranton. Any other comments?
Well, I did have one, but these two guys just stole my thunder, the whole thing, and I completely concur and agree with what you're saying. I had the scope issue scoped out.
Perfect, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, I only have one, and it would be that I will be requesting 3 members of the council to volunteer and give me their names at one time, read the roll, and see if you have any conflicts or whatnot. Okay, being we have no more questions, all in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. All right, we are on page 15. The Internet Project Final Reconciliation. I need a mover. Councillor Cotw.
I move that Committee of the Whole recommend that Council authorize funding of $394,837 from the Capital Reserve Fund for the completion of the Internet project.
Thank you. I need a seconder. Councillor Hobson. Okay, do we have any questions or comments? We have Madam Angela Anderson here with us today. Councillor Hagenbauer.
I'm just wondering if there's a typo on the motion of the amount, $394,837. If you look on page 15, it's actually stated at $349,837.
Yes.
Good catch. Yes, it's 349 that we need to fund it.
So the motion should be amended
Yep.
to reflect the proper amount.
So please amend the motion.
So I'll amend that, yeah.
Okay, the motion is amended to read let's try that again. 349, 837. Do we need I need a seconder. Deputy Warden? Okay, any comments? If not, I will ask the question on the amendment. All in favor, say yes.
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 Opposed, no. Motion passed. Thank you, councillors. And we'll go back to the questions on the main motion. If there's any questions or discussion, go running away on it.
That's right.
Deputy Warden.
Thank you. So the biggest important question is what was the profit we actually got overall?
Oh, profit.
I just want to confirm that for the general public.
So the overall gain on sale of the internet project was $866,589, and that is sitting in the Capital Reserve Fund.
And that is stated on the bottom of page 14.
And also, when this is done and paid, we're going to do a certificate of completion, that way we're not held for anything further.
So your question is?
My question is, once we pay this, are we going to issue a certificate of completion for this project? That way, no more costs, it's done.
Be occurred, okay. Right,
We will have something in writing saying this, the project is complete and everything. There will be nothing else owing to Explore, yes.
Okay.
We will have something in writing.
I just don't want random 5 years down the road. By the way, you didn't do this, so, okay,
Good
perfect.
point.
okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions on this motion? All right, on the main motion, with the correction, as we've already done, all in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Against, no. Motion passed. Thank you. Thank you, Madam. We are now on the approval of bylaw 6, commercial activity. Page 16. I would need a mover for the motion. Deputy Warden?
I move to recommend that municipal council give first reading to approve bylaw 6, commercial activity on municipal property.
Thank you. Seconder, Councilor Longmire. Is there any questions or any discussion? discussion on this? Deputy Warden?
Thank you. I agree with the policy and the fact that it will help speed things up. And I know that Tom's Cool Bus, or that's what his name, right? Would definitely benefit from this because every year's a package and it's the responsibility of the person and so on. And sometimes it can be forgotten. I know last year, the year before, we did a quick meeting so they could have their permit for Mother's Day weekend, I think it was. So the fact that we're opening up this policy to allow the clerk to review and sign things will speed that process up. And the fact that it's only meant for basic ones, I agree with that. There's still some control, but the ones that are every year, the basic ones, I think it's great. And I think it's going to help the business community. And maybe it might instill some other food vendors or things to move forward and give a quicker response.
Yes,
Thank you.
I agree. Quicker response, that's what it was. Any other questions or comments? Nope. All in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no? All in favor. Okay, we are moving on to the next, which is the actual, so, I need a mover. Quickly. Councilor Harding?
I move that municipal council authorize the clerk to issue a 2025-26 vendor on municipal property permit to Tom Marshall for the operation of Tom's Cool Bus Canteen at the Annapolis River Causeway Park in accordance with S6 Commercial Activity on Municipal Property Bylaw, and permit the canteen to stay at the park overnight for the April to October season, subject to reasonable requests from the municipality to move it from time to time.
Seconder? Councilor Ross? Okay. Are there any questions or comments on this? Deputy Warden, comment?
This just means spring is coming.
Nice.
That's a good indicator.
The smell is in the air.
Okay. Anything else? Yes.
So we're doing this because we just passed the bylaw,
Well,
No.
but this
We
won't
have-
have to come to us next year?
correct. But I'll let you.
Right now, the bylaw's still in place, you still have to do.
Right.
So we won't see the nice picture of the cool bus next year.
We'll go there a couple times.
Okay. No more questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion passed. Thank you. We are going on to page 26, which has to do with the flag flying motion. I need a mover. Councilor Longmire.
I move that municipal council repeal AM-1.2.7 flag flying policy, 7-day notice.
Thank you. Do I need a seconder? Councilor Hare. Thank you. Questions or comments for Madam Campbell? Yes, Councilor Harding.
Yeah, so it says that we no longer have flagpoles at our facilities, but is there not a flagpole right out front here?
Go ahead.
As soon as we went to executive, I was corrected on that. It would have been more appropriate for me to say we're not currently using
Right.
any flagpoles. So I stand corrected on that. We do have flagpoles, we're not currently using any of them at any of our facilities.
Okay. So I would just like to add to that for me personally, I think that flying the Canada flag and flying the Nova Scotia flag and the county flag is important. I think it's a source of pride for the community. I know that there are certain instances where you would fly other flags. I also think that it's a sign of respect to fly flags at half-mast, and I know that Mrs. Campbell has said that, that the national and provincial governments have policies for this. I just wonder, that I've read through the policy seems to be fine. Right now, with everything that's going on, and I hate to bring it up, but with Trump and tariffs, we are in a time of national pride. People have a lot of pride in being Canadian right now, and I just wonder if maybe this is sending the right message at the right time to be repealing this policy. For me, reading through the policy, I don't see much problems with it. We fly at half-mast if an active service member is killed, so I think that the policy is okay, and I think that at this point in time, flying a flag is in the national interest, and I would support that. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harding. Any other, Deputy Warden?
Thank you. So, I do agree with Councillor Harding, because if anyone's ever drove by my house or visited me lately, I got various flags. But I believe that we should be using the flagpoles that we have. But at the same time, if we expand from one flagpole to more, I get nervous that it opens us up. So there's the order of precedence for flags. So with 3, for example, you need to have 4, because you have to, in order for the flag precedence, you would have to fly the Canadian, the Nova Scotia, the Mi'kmaq flag, and the county flag. So you have to have 4, and then you have to decide, okay, Linda opens a conversation of, are we going to fly a different flag for every single organization, or every single cause? And then, because if you don't, then the ones that we don't fly is going to cause an issue. So in my mind, either we upgrade our flag poles that we have, the 2, to 4. So one main one with 3, or you'd have to get 5 actually. Or stay it as a single mast with the Canadian flag. And right now, I feel that without spending any money, we can just use a single flag pole we have and just fly the Canadian flag. And I could talk about this all day, and the fact that we should have a spotlight that shines on the Canadian flag while it's up, or it should really be taken down, or there's a whole thing to it. But I think that right now we should just stay with 1 and just fly the Canadian flag, because I feel that if we start opening up too much, there is an abundance of other flags, and then we have to have the discussion of, well, what flag is that going to replace to take the precedence? Is it going to be the county one? And then it comes up that we have 4 and you have a Mi'kmaq flag, and then we fly a flag that could be in conflict with, it just opens up a huge thing. And as we see right now, we're being attacked from everything. And really, no matter what we do at this time, So I feel right now, let's just stay with 1 flag pole at both locations and fly the Canadian flag 100%, and then follow the federal regulation on if there is a death of a Canadian Forces member or whatever. We follow the stance of the federal government, and which is the same policy the province follows, basically. That way we show our respect and our pride for our country, because we are in a situation right now that pride is high. So I think that's what we should do, and I do feel we should probably also look at a bit of the spotlight situation.
Spotlight, yes.
But I'll deal with that later on. But at least, let's do that. That way it doesn't cost us any money. And the other caveat for that is my concern around the condition of the flag.
Yes.
Like, we fly the flag, and if it starts to show signs of wear or tear, that we need to replace that flag. Because if not, it's disrespectful the further it goes. So, thank you, that's all I have.
Thank you for your insight there, Councillor. Deputy Warden. Councillor Longmire.
And I'm not going to add anything more to it, other than I love the idea of a spotlight. We do need to fly a flag. We do. We have 3 here, right? They can't be seen outside. I would love to see an addition to these flags that are here in this chambers. We do need to be prideful Canadians, and more than ever. So I really do appreciate every word that was spoke from the Deputy Warden. Thank you for that.
And Councillor Harding.
And Councillor Harding. Sorry.
Yes.
On both sides.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, Councillor Ross?
I also like the idea of flying the Canadian flag for now. We have 3 flagpoles right now that are out there.
That was 2.
Is there just 2? Is there just 1?
One.
I never noticed it because there wasn't a flag on it. so-
Same.
Yeah.
One,
But I think,
I think there's one here, and I think there's one with 2 or 3 poles in Cornwall's Park. somewhere.
okay, yeah, there is in the Veterans
Yeah.
Park, yeah. I'd like to look adding 3 to it, so we can add the province, the county, and the Mi'kmaq flag as well, down the road, eventually. I think those are all important ones that we should be flying eventually.
Thank you. Councillor Hare?
You first?
Were you first?
All right. I'll just echo what Alms Lovett said, and I think just keep it simple. I think the idea of repealing this policy was to simplify things. So I think 1 flagpole under federal policy is just what we should be doing, simple, not getting into anything controversial. So.
Thank you, Councillor Hare. Councillor Hagelmeyer?
Well, I'm assuming that if we're talking about the flags in general for all of the properties, that would include this room, I suspect, as well. We can't have a flag flying policy that is not inclusive of all. I tend to agree with the Deputy Warden as well, that it would be nice to have recognition of all the entities, specifically the ones mentioned, but again, then you could get into conflict with other groups. We are becoming a much more integrated society with more immigrants coming, more people that have different views, I suspect, on that sort of thing. So I think it's a sticky wicket of a situation, but I think by going to the one flag, the one thing that we all have in common, and that is being Canadian, particularly now with what's going on, as Councillor Harding had brought up, I would tend to agree with the one flag issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor, any other comments? Okay. On the motion, all in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes? Against? No? 1 against. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Let's move along to Warden versus Mayor system. On page 30. We have a motion here. Who's going to be the mover?
Me.
Councillor Aguilar?
I feel a little bit like Julius Caesar today going into the Senate. Where are the Ides of March? I move that council of the municipality of the County of Annapolis add to the public boundary review consultation process whether or not Annapolis County should switch from a current warden system to a mayoral system.
Thank you. Seconder. Councillor Francis? Councillor Aguilar, are you going to start?
Thank you. So, during my election campaign, the subject of the last survey regarding the number of boundaries and the mayor and the warden issue came up at several of my door-to-door encounters, as well as the community hall meetings that I had had throughout my district, District 7. And that included the candidates meeting at the Bridgetown Fire Hall, which was very well attended. I made a commitment, if I were to be elected, that I would bring this issue back to council, so that's why we're doing this today. I would simply ask you, my fellow councilors, if you would look at this today with an open mind and make your voting decision as you believe your electorate would want you to. Whatever the outcome, whatever the result of the vote is, I will respect your position and your input today. So if you bear with me for a few minutes, I'll give you my dissertation on why we're doing this. So in the Nova Scotia Utility and Review Board decision dated October the 19th, 23, it stated, and I quote, "At a minimum, if the municipality revisits the issue of a mayoral system or warden system of government, that issue should be determined before more public consultation takes place on the number of councillors and the boundaries of the polling districts." Ergo, or the reason, the question today is, do we want to revisit the issue of the mayor versus warden or not? And if we do, we need to include it in the current process. So the question is not whether or not we're going to, it's whether or not we want to revisit it or want to have it included. The Nova Scotian Review Board directive does not imply, in my opinion, that we must go to the public first. It states that we, meaning the council of the municipality, should determine the revisit issue before we consult on the boundary and district issue. What we're looking at is whether or not we want to revisit the issue. So, if we decide today to revisit the issue, I see no need to add extra or separate meetings at the public consultation to deal with specifically with the mayoral question. The two issues were inclusive, setting the precedent. They were inclusive in the previous public consultation. Therefore, there would be no extra cost to doing so, as it states in the discussion that you have in your package today. I believe the previous survey was skewed, with 6 options split between mayor and warden and number of districts. Too many choices. Keep it simple. I think when I say skewed, I think that probably confused some voters. Would you like a mayor system with 6? Would you like a mayor system with 7, 8, 9, 10? Or would you like a warden system with 6, 7, 8, 9? Too many questions on the survey. Which probably, and that's only an assumption, had a bearing on the outcome of the vote. So for example, if we did decide to revisit the issue and include this, there would simply, in my mind, be 2 questions. And bear in mind, I think we can do this together at the same time without adding an additional 11 or 22 or extra cost. So the 2 questions, simple. 1, do you prefer a mayor or a warden system? Question number 1 on the survey. That's simple. And question number 2 is, what is your choice for the number of districts? As an example, it could be 9, 10, or 11. You don't need to give them 6 choices. We've already discussed that. 6 or 7 is probably not enough to cover the territory districts that we cover now, which is one of the biggest arguments that the last council chose when they decided to stay with the 11, because the districts are so large. Simple, 2 questions. Do you want a mayor or warden? And how many districts would you like? Having an odd number of votes at council is not mandatory. If you look at current counties in the province of Nova Scotia, for example, Kings County has a mayor and 9 councillors. That's an even number. Queens County has a mayor and 7 councillors. Digby County has a warden in 5 districts. Lunenburg, mayor, 10 councillors. Colchester County, mayor, 11 councillors. Victoria County, warden, 8 districts. Guysborough County, warden, 8 districts, and Pictou County, warden with 12 districts. So you see, it's all over the map. In respect to the MGA Section 12C on page 31 of 33 of your package today, question C, item C says, the total number of councillors is increased by 1 unless the municipality has applied to the board and the board has determined otherwise. I believe the premise here speaks to, in the case of a municipality that might be applying, just looking at switching from a mayor to or from a warden to a mayor system without any boundary change. So for instance, if we're sitting at 11, if all we were doing was asking the public if they would like to have a mayor or a warden, it says no reflection on the number of boundaries, so I don't see that as an impediment. In any case, we could apply to the board for a ruling or a clarification if we did decide to go that route. So in closing, the issue with the voter turnout numbers. The Nova Scotia Review Board, in their decision letter dated October the 19th, 2023, stated, and I quote, "An impressive survey participation was achieved." They felt that the number of people that voted was sufficient to make a warranted decision. Voter turnout participation, or percentage, if you like to use that terminology, speaks to the apathy of the non-voters, which could lead one to believe that they just don't care, and of course that they're willing to accept the will of the people that do vote. When the majority make their choice and that choice is ignored, they feel disenfranchised and even more disillusioned and distrustful of their elected officials. In the last survey, 75% of the respondents voted for 9 or fewer districts. 57% voted for a mayoral system. Both choices were rejected by the council of the day. I feel that we owe it to the voters who elected us to have the full review. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go on from Councillor Eggenbach to Councillor Cotw.
Well, I'll start the same way my colleague did. When I went door to door, there was no questions, none whatsoever, on mayor or warden, nor the number of councillors that we have to represent our constituents. So I'm speaking with the same amount of voters as my previous councillor. Once you go to a warden or mayor system, the NSGU, or the Nova Scotia Utility and Review Board, has stated that you cannot go back. Once you go to a mayor system, it's a mayor system from then on. I think people have to understand that. And again, none of my constituents had any concern about that issue. Also, it says that revisiting the warden versus mayor system is not required by the NSU ARB, as they have no jurisdiction over that decision, as it falls fully within the purview of a municipal council.
And that's on page 31.
And that's on page 31.
32.
I sat at 2 budget meetings the last 2 weeks to represent my constituents. And hopefully next week, we'll pass this year's budget at $27,304,576, because my constituents put me here to do what they felt that I would do best, and that is to represent them. I feel fully that my constituents would feel the same way on me deciding my vote on a mayor or warden system. I don't feel it even has to be a part of the question about how many councillors we have. I feel that my constituents have given me and voted me in to do what I feel is good for all of my constituents and the county. I feel that we shouldn't have that. I feel it should be a decision of this council if we want a warden system or a mayor system. And that is what I'm going to support. There's different reasons for either side. We've heard some of the other counties and jurisdictions across Nova Scotia have the same amount, some have more, some have less, some have less by one. Some of the information that's put out there on how the municipalities are governed, again, is not all true to the person's eye. We keep slinging Kings County into our equation, and Kings County has two big villages that have village commissions that run those two big villages. So Kings County is similar, but not quite as similar as us. We have one village. So our citizens are governed by majority of council, even though we collect the taxes in the village of Lawrencetown. The village still runs the village. I'm not for adding this to the equation of how many councillors we need, and I would like to see council, as I feel, do the job, which is quoted. It's fully in the purview of a municipal council to make that decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Harding.
Thank you. So, I'd like to thank the previous councilors for their comments. And I'd like to take this opportunity to reaffirm my support for maintaining the warden system in Annapolis County. Much similar to Councillor Connell, this was not a major issue in the residents that I spoke to. I've considered the issue carefully and weighing the advantages and disadvantages of both governance models. I believe that our current system is effective. It fosters strong collaboration. It ensures that leadership remains focused on collective priorities of council rather than on individual political ambitions. I'd like to reference an argument made by Morris Hogg in an article that was published by P&I Atlantic News. Hogg highlights many key reasons why the warden system is the best choice for rural municipalities like ours. So it's a leadership model that's built on teamwork and cooperation. In a warden system, council elects one of its own to serve as first among equals. This approach encourages consensus building and ensures that the chosen leader understands the challenges, priorities, and strategic goals of the municipality. As Hogg states, who has a better chance to know the qualities of a councillor to fill the shoes of warden, the public at large, or those who work with him or her, serve on committees together, and struggle together to decide what is best for the whole county? A mayoral system introduces individual political mandates that may create friction within the council. A mayor may seek to implement a personal agenda rather than working collaboratively with council to determine the best path forward. A warden, by contrast, is chosen based on their ability to build consensus, work effectively with the staff, and represent the municipality at all levels of government. Hogg also points out, should such a person have a personal mandate separate from the whole council, would that not lead to friction and conflict? Would it lead to a one-man show? Running for mayor in a geographically large and rural county would be an expensive and time-consuming effort. This would limit the pool of candidates to only those with significant financial resources or political ambitions beyond municipal governance. The warden system ensures that anyone elected to council has an equal opportunity to serve in a leadership role, regardless of their own personal means. With a 2-year term for warden, council has the ability to reassess its leadership more frequently than in a mayoral system. This ensures that if needed, adjustments can be made to reflect the evolving needs of the municipality. And the 2-year cycle allows council to ensure that the warden is effectively carrying out their duties without being locked into a 4-year mayoral term. It's worth noting that there are some rural municipalities that have transitioned to a mayoral system that have later expressed regret. As we heard from Councillor Connell, they're not able to go back. So, I believe, in conclusion, that by maintaining our current governance model, we're preserving a system that prioritizes collaboration over political ambition. It ensures broad accessibility to leadership and allows for adaptive decision-making in the best interests of our residents. For these reasons, I would strongly support keeping the warden system in Annapolis County. I would encourage all of council to stand by this decision in order to continue fostering teamwork and strategic vision that have and continue to have made our governance structure so effective. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harding. Next will be Deputy Warden.
Thank you. Well, I wish I would have went first. Because some of my notes are already said. So, I'm going to try my best not to regurgitate things. But, so, first of all, I want to thank Councillor Egmer for the detailed information and well thought out thing. And there's nothing wrong with bringing a motion on the table. We've talked about this before with other motions. But with this situation, I want to move on to my second question of, I like the idea that's presented in some ways, because I don't exactly know how I want to support yes or no. I like the fact that in Councillor Egmer's suggestion, it didn't tie together. In my mind, it's kind of an information gathering that could be used in the future, maybe. Not to actually deal with it right now, because we're just taking the opportunity while we're asking people questions that maybe we can just get the general pulse, not the fact of using that completely tied to. And I never really thought about that until it was brought up. So I like the fact that it's not tied. I wasn't so supportive of going back and asking all the questions, giving too many options, because I believe the last time we talked about it, I mentioned that we had too many options. Because that's when I made the suggestion that maybe we should go with the 9 and 10, and then we looked at maybe adding 9, 10, 11. And I can concur that during my campaign, it was brought up a lot. And I think some of that might be because of the former town of Bridgetown was a mayoral system. So it's what most of them were used to. And so, in those towns, no different than Middleton, they have mayor, Yarmouth, even my hometown. So I think it's some of what they're used to. And their big concern was around the fact that they had the opportunity to vote for that person. However, I want to give full disclosure that when the last survey came out, I completed the survey, I voted for 9 plus mayor. because I wasn't at this table. I came from an area that had a mayor, so I was used to it. And I didn't really think about that situation. I was more focused on like the government, the local government, and what affected me day to day. I didn't really think about that. It was just more of what I was used to, and also with the fact of that I could have the opportunity to decide who was going to lead council. However, since then, I've had time to reflect over the past couple of years, and also have this opportunity to discuss with multiple constituents on my thoughts, because they always ask, what are your thoughts? And it's a very slippery slope to go down. However, since being in this chair and being more involved in local government, I've made a bit of a list of pros and cons. So, and in my mind right now, personally, and from talking to the majority of the people in my district that believe we should have this discussion feel the same way, is there is more cons for a mayor than a warden, for various reasons. So warden is a democratic way of doing business. You know, we don't get to vote for Prime Minister, the Premier, but that's a minor thing. My concern around the mayor system is the same as other ones that were brought around. I'm concerned that if we ever decided, and the people decided that we wanted to go to a mayor system, that one, we're locked into that, 100%. And two, is my other fear of buying that seat. Now, everyone can say, oh, I like the opportunity that I can vote for the mayor. However, who are we going to see that runs for that position? It's going to be urban areas that have the name recognition. It's also going to be people that either have the financial ability or can get the support and backers financial, and then that's another issue of mine, because I don't accept any campaign donations, because I don't want anyone to say that, you know, I gave you $5 or whatever it was, you know, can you vote this way? So you can buy that seat. So in my mind, if we did go to the mayor system, the people that would be the mayor would either be from Bridgetown, potentially Cornwallis, part of the East End, but the smaller areas, like I don't think we would see a mayor from Springfield. I don't think we'd see a mayor from Granville Ferry. Because
Never.
Well, I know, but the name recognition that you have, you already have ahead of the game. You're from, say, Bridgetown. You have that population that you can hit, and you can get those votes. And the ones you don't get there, you can pump thousands of dollars into putting signs everywhere. So you can potentially buy it, and but that's just one piece. The other piece that I have is if you happen to get a mayor that's elected, I don't want to say as a tyrant, but someone that it's a one-man show, and there's other examples throughout different provinces and different areas that, you know, they're the mayor, they control everything. And in the way, there's some pros to that, because they don't have that fear of being thrown off the block. They don't have to impress or keep anyone happy or even care if the team works together. So you're stuck with that person for 4 years, and at the whim of their decisions, there's a examples of people just deciding as the mayor going to fire people and take control of this and do things like that. But with a warden system, God forbid, if our current warden or any warden is doing something that we don't support, and we have a general consensus, I don't want to call it a vote of non-confidence, but with 2/3 of the vote, we can select a new warden. We can't do that with a mayor. Also, going back in time to the money conversation, to run a campaign in a district is cheaper in some ways and opens the ability for people that would never think about being mayor or a warden to still want to represent that district, and then they have the opportunity in the future to be a warden. But I feel it makes it more inclusive, and you never know. Maybe in that situation we have someone from wherever, and it doesn't matter what their financial situation is. I feel like I'm kind of beating a dead horse here, but I'm just concerned that the pros and cons outweigh. But at the same time, I agree that maybe it is a good idea to ask that question for information's sake. Not to implement it, but then you're opening up a can of worms of this and that. I do agree with what Councillor Connell said, that we were elected by our residents 100%, and I preach that all the time. But then I also want to listen to, my residents. I just don't know how I want to support this. However, I do want to point out one thing, that if this did pass, and we did go to it, that an important piece is education. Because when I voted for the survey years ago, I didn't have all of the education. So if this did move forward, we would have to include that education piece with our public engagement to explain what are the pros, what are the cons, what can the mayor do, what can a warden do, because that education piece is key. Because a lot of people just focus on the fact that, well, I can vote for that person as the mayor. I have a say. But you also have a say when you vote your councillor in, because they're your voice. And we all know that the squeaky wheel gets the grease. We all have, people within our district that are very involved in the day-to-day operations of the municipality, and they definitely let you know. They provide information and their thoughts and opinions and things. So you have that engagement. In closing of this jargon that I have put on the floor, I just don't know how I want to support this. And I'm interested in hearing everyone's point of view, and thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Warden, Councillor Hare, and followed by Councillor Longmire and Councillor Cranston.
Put me on the list.
And you're next, and Auditor. Well, there, do you have your order? Everybody know where they're at? Hare, Longmire, Cranston, Auditor, and Wells. Go ahead, Councillor Hare.
I'm probably going to do a lot of echoing to a minimum, but I would have to agree word for word with what Harding had said, so just instead of repeating it all, just rethink it all. This is, again, as Agabar said, it's the issue of whether or not we want to revisit it. So to me, essentially we are making a decision today if it's going to be a mayor or warden. because as Agribar stated, if we want to revisit it, there was a need to consult the public on it. But if we feel that we can all today here be happy with the warden system, then there's no need to revisit the issue. And so I do think we can make a decision today. And again, like Councillor Connell has said, I do believe I have the support of my people when I make my decision on this subject. It wasn't, I didn't hear the word mayor warden at all when I ran for my election, so I think people are happy with the system we have now. Otherwise, I definitely would have heard something. And so since it is kind of an issue of whether or not, since we are kind of basically making a decision today if it's going to be mayor or warden, we do have to consider the benefits, pros and cons of either. And just the fact that you can't go back, I think it needs to be an overwhelming amount of show from the people to switch to a mayor system, because it needs to be overwhelming. It can't be, what was it, 54% I think I heard that said mayor. That's, to me, for something you can't go back on, that's nowhere near enough. Nowhere near enough. It's, what we have, I think, is good. And if we do want to open this can of worms up to the public, I think the larger issue on hand is the number of districts. I really do think that is the larger issue at hand. And I would rather have our public consultation be solely directed towards the number of districts. It's, I believe that is the way greater issue. And if we start adding to that public consultation, it's going to add too much to it. Our education piece, I'm sure for the number of districts is already going to be lengthy. Well, then we all have to sit down and agree to an education piece for the mayor. And if I just don't think it's necessary when we can make a decision today. It's just going to skew further results. And again, just to echo what other people said, the benefits of warden, it's a 2/3 majority vote. We can get rid of, and future councils can get rid of the warden that they believe is not fit. I think that is a very powerful tool. And another bit into it is to add flame to the fire. I did remember seeing an article by CTV of chatter regarding strong mayoral powers. And if we did switch to a mayor system, there is the possibility that in the future there may be more power granted to a mayor. And I think the power our warden has now is fit, just. It leaves a lot with what we have. It doesn't take away from our council members, so. I'm sure there's more I'm leaving out, but I just echo what all the councilors basically have already said. I believe I can make a vote today on warden. I believe we all can make a vote on mayor versus warden today. It's, if we all can majority say warden, then that just, it basically solves that, so. That's mine.
Thank you, Councillor Hare. Councilor Longley.
Thank you. First I want to say a huge thank you to Councilor Agambar, because it takes a lot to put something like this together. And, when we do run for a seat around a council table, it is from the citizens that have voted the member in, trusting that they will follow through and represent their word, and he has honored that today. It was part of what his discussion was with his constituents, and that is impressive. So first there. I'm not going to repeat, hopefully I won't repeat. It cannot be reversed. We need to be liberating participation in our county, period. So that means getting busy in your halls and getting busy with your citizens and making them aware. That is the education piece. We need to talk about the size of council, and we need to have that informal conversation of what a warden and a mayor is, right? And what they will do for you, and that reversal that is not a possibility moving forward. So although I believe there's merit in both warden and mayor, I'm not here to discuss that today. It is the purview of municipal council. We will ultimately make that decision, and because we have been trusted by our constituents as they vote us in, then they are hopeful that we will represent their voices. Those voices we will be hearing from as we visit with them in our communities. Journalism is a really special little beast. It has a tendency to want to sway a person in a particular direction. So, we go back to, a lot of people don't understand, and it's not that are they interested? Have we made them interested? Are we keeping our ear to the ground? Are we representing and listening to them actively, right? So we can think we know what's best, but again, survey, the one word that, Councilor Agambar used, and I do believe others in the room had used as well. There's nothing wrong with asking informally, how do you feel about it? What do you understand about it? And let's get good information so that we can share adequately, so that they can understand, when we do, because it is the purview of council, we have the right and privilege to vote in one direction or the other, then we will hopefully represent, the voices and make the best decision possible. Youth, I want more youth to be involved. That's a huge representation that is missing in our campaigns and elections. So we've got to get really busy out there, getting them interested. And, education in the schools, I don't know how much they talk about municipal government and how much they teach, but we need to invite them here. Let's get them here so they can hear, and maybe generate some interest so that they can learn earlier than later, right? That this could be their seat someday, right? And I do believe it was Deputy Warden who said about something around the, not necessarily youth, but, anyway.
I'll agree.
What's that?
I'll agree.
You'll agree. You did say something that was really, really beneficial there. It was lovely. I don't really want to interrupt the whole process of the already existing meetings that we have set. I think it's going to add a lot of congestion to if we were to add something more formal. So I think it should be informal, a discussion, and of course, the education piece. Of course, it can be, as part of this, the meetings that are already set, but it doesn't have to be separate. I think we really need to focus on the size of council, and looking at hard and fast at our size of our districts, and be honest with ourselves. Right? Look around your own districts right now and say how much further could you go, right? And I do. I hope that the constituents in my district trust that I will represent their voice when it comes time to make that really serious decision. When you can't go back on it, it's going to take a lot more work on our end to make sure that we make that right decision. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Councilor. Councilor Craig?
Thank you. Thank you to everybody who spoke so far, and those who are still up to speak. The key thing I wrote down was keep an open mind. That was the first request from Councilor Agambar. And I interpret today's discussion not on whether warden versus mayor, but whether or not we wanted, request was to have it revisited. I sort of agree with what Councillor Agenbar said about it should be a starting point, because it kind of dictates the size of your districts and whatnot. I will say that I had heard a lot of concerns about the size of council during my campaign, and since being elected, I have not heard as many concerns about mayor versus warden, but I have heard a few, including one come right out and said, don't go mayor. So it's there. I guess my initial thought is when I voted in the survey, I will say on a personal note, I voted for warden. I kind of agree with the points that Councillor Harding brought up, and that some of the other points that were shared. One of the things that I felt was a disadvantage of a mayor system is that the runner-up doesn't get to be on council at all. Where right now, you have a good group of people at the table and you pick a leader amongst them. I've seen cases where a good councillor will give up their seat to run for mayor, be the runner-up, and that's it. They're done. So that's one of the other cons. But the one thing that stands out for me is that that's my personal opinion of it. So where I have trouble somewhat torn is the statistic that Councillor Agenbar shared, in that 57% were in favor of the mayor system versus the warden system. So it can't just be ignored. So that tends to leave me being somewhat open to having the discussion again. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm in favor of switching. I would kind of say that in my mind, if I was justifying deferring it to later, I would say it's a big enough topic that requires more than 57%. Typically, when it's not an option A versus option B, it's a status quo versus changing. And a lot of times in decisions like that, you need 2/3 to consider. Much like if we wanted to remove our warden right now, we wouldn't be able to remove the warden with 57% of the vote. We would need 2/3 of the vote. So I know I'm going back and forth a little, but it's one that I'm having trouble looking past, because again, it's not what my personal viewpoint on the situation is. It's we're elected to represent our constituents. And I would have a hard time sticking with status quo, just knowing that 57%, we're looking at that. That being said, it's not the question of the day. The URB direction was to revisit the size of the council. And from the people that I spoke to, the size of the council was the bigger issue. I've heard some concerns from one resident that wasn't happy with the money we're spending on revisiting this, and had explained, well, we've been somewhat mandated by URB to do so, and his response was, well, you should have just listened in the first place. And my response is, well, that was the previous council. I can't do anything.
Council's council.
About that.
Council's council.
Yeah. Well, or that we've been told by the URB to revisit it, so that's maybe the more appropriate answer. So I guess in short, I am somewhat torn by knowing the survey result. Just to say the survey's flawed is not an acceptable answer, and knowing that, but I don't think it's a strong enough support to revisit it at this moment. I did have a question. Once I'm done speaking, if somebody can speak to. Typically, these come around every 8 years, so because we're doing one at the 4-year mark, is the one that would have been scheduled for 8 years later still going to happen, or is it at 8 years? So I would suggest that perhaps when we get through this one, we're going to have to do it again in 4 years' time, so maybe that's the more appropriate time to revisit the mayor versus warden system. And for this one, just focus on what we've been asked for by the URB, which is to revisit the size of council, which is, from the people I spoke to, is the far bigger concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fenton. Councillor Oxner.
I'll be short and sweet. This did not come up, either mayor, warden, or district sizes, numbers, while I was campaigning. Councillor Eggenbar has, done what he told his constituents he would and brought this forward. I think a lot of our citizens want to be involved in that selection of a mayor without knowing the pros and cons going forward. And as I said, it wasn't mentioned at all when I was campaigning. I am satisfied with maintaining our warden system and educating the public on why we chose to go that way, if that's what we decide, and list the pros and cons. Because the pros certainly outweigh the cons from warden to mayor. And that's it for me.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Next is Councillor Whipples.
Coming up last. I want to thank Councillor Eggenbar for bringing this discussion forward. I think it's an important one, and it's one that it's timely. We should have it sooner than later. I made a bunch of notes. Most of council has already covered that, and I thank you for that. Let's see if I can just get into some of this and see if I can be quick with it. Each system has a distinct advantage and challenges in terms of leadership selection, accountability and decision-making, and overall effectiveness in municipal operations. We currently operate under a warden system, and I support that. I had a whole bunch of other things in here. You guys have already covered it. So. I think for consideration moving forward, there's a few questions that we have to evaluate in its governance structure, and the key factors to include public accountability. Does the current system allow for enough representation and leadership? Operational efficiency. Does a mayor-led system improve decision-making and municipal management? Community engagement. How would residents prefer to elect their municipal leader? And the financial impact. What are the budgetary implications of maintaining and changing our government model? I think it's important that we continue the discussion, and I think public consultation is very important, financial analysis, and reviewing best practices from other municipalities to see what works and what doesn't work. This will be essential for determining the best path forward for Annapolis County. And you guys covered everything else, so I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Councillor Eigenbar, you're going to wrap it up, are you?
I am.
2 minutes.
Thank you. Well, at the outset, I asked everybody to keep this question with an open mind in respect to the question itself today, which is not whether we're sitting here to decide today if there's going to be a mayor or warden system, because that's certainly not the intent of the motion. It wasn't my intention to bring this up here today. And I've written a bunch of notes that I could have a rebuttal on each one of your comments. It sounds pretty polarized, very polarized here as to what your intentions are in respect to this motion today. But as I said at the outset, this wasn't to be making the decision today to switch to a mayor or warden system, as Councillor Harris seemed to suggest that if we do this revisit today, we're making that decision. Well, that's not true. We're only going to the public to reiterate the decision that they made the last time, which was a 57%. I agree wholeheartedly, and I wrote it in my notes as well, that if we did go, and if there was a decision made by the vote with a percentage of going to a mayor system, it would have to be substantial. I agree. I don't think somewhere between 50 and 60% is substantial enough to make the change. So ultimately, whether we go to revisit and go to the public on it, it's ultimately up to the council of the day, at that time, as it was the last time, to make the ultimate decision. There's good arguments been made by everybody that's here today, and I appreciate the time that everybody's taken. And I know that this was probably not an issue that some of you wanted to tackle. But at the same time, notwithstanding the accolades that I received for just doing it, that wasn't the main reason I was just doing it. I was just doing it for bringing this up today because of the same reasons that I did and the rest of you have spoken to. I'm not sure who did, but somebody quoted, I think it was Councilor Harding quoted somebody's opinion of a mayor system versus a warden system. I have this rebuttal of that I could read as well, but I don't see any reason to take the time to do that today. I just want to reiterate, what we're talking about today is not whether we're going to decide today if there's going to be a mayor or not. Who knows? A properly run survey with properly asked questions, proper education that's involved in the presentation that we're all going to, that would happen during the survey time could ultimately result in the overwhelming electoral support for a warden system. Just as much as it could be for a mayor system. And in that case, I guess it wouldn't necessarily have to be an overwhelming decision, but I guess by axiom of equality, it should be. So that's not the question today. As far as buying a seat is concerned, that's an argument that could be made in either case. Somebody at this table today, mayor could have done that in the past election or in future elections. You know, get a bunch of sponsorship, get more support financially from the community, and run a similar campaign in terms of quote-unquote buying a vote. But in closing, I think, basically I just said it, the ultimate decision will be made at council. I would like to thank everybody for their input here today. As I said at the outset, whatever the vote is, whatever the result is, I would respect it, and I respect your positions, each and every one of you. Thank you for hearing me on this.
Thank you, Councillor. So, we have gone into the depths of all of this, and now we
And heard
need
some
to
votes.
let you run with what you have to do, with what you have to say, and very good comments were made. The motion on the floor is that Council of the Municipality of the County of Annapolis add to the public boundary review consultation process whether or not Annapolis County should switch from the current warden system to a mayoral system. You say. That's the question. That's the motion to add it. All in favor, signify by saying yes.
Yes.
2 yes. Against?
No.
No.
So, motion is denied. All right, perfect. We're done with that. We are ready for, there's no new business, so we're ready for in-camera. So we will be going in-camera under section 22.2G, legal advice, and 22.2C, personal matters, as per the Municipal Government Act. Motion for in-camera, Longmire, seconder, Grant, Harding, sorry. Going everywhere with that. All in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
No? Motion carries.